Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today we're doing, we got a special far away recording again. So you might notice the audio is a little different, but it's for a cool manga. So we wanted to get it done, and yeah, we figured this was the easiest way to do it today. So
this is from our March Manga Madness. I always try to come up with a ridiculous name for our polls.
yes, your alliterations.
Yes, and so the month of March we did all manga, and our winner was this one, which is Lone Wolf and Cub, which I was really excited, like, because this is one that some of my favorite things are based off of, but I've never sat down and read this. So
right, yeah, there's like references to this in a lot of stuff. I mean,
yeah,
even like Bob's Burgers has a reference to this in it. So
that's right. What's the one that Bob and
it's like chicken hawk or something like that.
Chicken Hawk? That's right.
Yeah, or hawk and chick, something like that.
Hawk and yeah. That's right, because he and Louise really bond on that.
Yes, and those are based on the movies that these were based on, or that were based on these books. So, yeah, this is a very influential series. I've tried to read this before, and I guess I just wasn't in the mood. Like, it just didn't catch me at the very beginning. And so I just kind of put it down. I think it was digital, so I didn't buy it. So I was just like, oh, let me try this out. It's not catching me. Next thing. So I hadn't read this before, but I did know that like Frank Miller and other people in the late 80s, early 90s were like, we need to bring this shit over from Japan because it's amazing. And I believe he is the reason why like Dark Horse started publishing this specifically. And if you notice, the cover for the first manga of this from Dark Horse is actually from Frank Miller. It's like a Frank Miller art piece with Lynn Varney on colors. So, but yeah, so this series, there's a lot of volumes to this. I looked it up. There's like 28 volumes of this manga.
Oh, holy cow!
I was like, wow, this is a really long series. But after reading it, I kind of feel like I need to start collecting it. So. They started printing omnibuses of this, I guess, recently. So you can get like bigger volume, like 700-page volumes of it, which I think is 3 of these mangas at once.
Just in time for Matt to start wanting to add it to his collection.
Yeah, I don't have enough stuff to collect still, so might as well add this. So, but yeah, Lone Wolf and Cub is written by Kazuo Kiyoki, and the art is by Goseki Kojima. And I've heard of Goseki Kojima before, but I have not heard of the writer, I don't think, off the top of my head. But one thing about this book that is kind of daunting, at least at first, and then throughout it, was there's a lot of Japanese political stuff in it, especially from the 1700s. Is it the 1700s or the 1500s?
I think 1700s.
1700s? Okay. Yeah, it's like in a specific time period. And a lot of that is, some of it went over my head. I tried to follow everything that was going on, but there was a lot of like, this clan is fighting this clan and they're against this shogun, and like just keeping track of that. But the main thing that you follow in this is the assassin and the assassin team, I guess, because the child does get involved in the assassinations, which is pretty awesome. But it is the father and son assassin duo, or Ronin or Shogun, whatever you want to call him, or samurai. I guess he was a samurai, but now he's a Shogun, not Shogun. Ronin, yeah. And it's what was his name?
His name is Ogami Ito.
Right. And then his son's name is
I don't want to, this one I didn't want to know if I pronounced it wrong. Diagoro or Diagoro?
Yeah, I think it's Diagoro. So yeah, and basically this dude just goes around and he gets hired by whoever wants to hire him, and he's pushing his baby, who it says is 3 years old in this, which I was like, wow, he gives that baby a lot to do in this. That is a very accelerated 3-year-old. But yeah, so like he walks around with the baby and gets hired to kill people. He's an assassin basically. But usually it's like for good. He never kills anybody just for money. It's like, oh, it's got to be for a righteous reason, you know.
I love that he has like I didn't realize and think about it, but like because he has a little banner flag, and I thought it was just going to be like, yeah, like who he was maybe, but I didn't realize it was like also an advertisement side, like
yeah,
swordsman for hire and then child for hire at some point too. So
yeah, it says son for hire, sword for hire, like, you know, this school. And so yeah, like he's got like, you know, basically that's the 1700s Japanese version of wavy inflatable arm man or whatever. So it's just a flag hanging off of the baby. I guess it's on his shoulders. Is that where it is? Like he just hangs it off of his back. Yeah. And then he's pushing this baby carriage that I liked had a lot of useful things on the baby carriage, like hidden knives and weapons, and also a bulletproof bottom that they could tip that thing over and hide from people with flintlock rifles and pistols. So
and it floats.
And it floats too. Yeah,
it's
a Deus Ex Machina is what that thing is. But yeah, and I will say, like, this is definitely a like a prototype manga. You know, like when you read it, you have to kind of put yourself in the mindset that this is an older one, and so you're gonna get stuff that, like, tropes that you've seen commonly in other mangas. But you got to remember, like, this is the first one, you know, like this is the one that set up all those other ones that they copied, you know? So it's kind of like with music. If you go back and listen to old music, you're like, man, I've already heard this riff like 10 times. It's like, yeah, but they did it first or whatever. So that's like,
how many times was it sampled?
Yeah, exactly. Or whatever, you know?
Or stolen.
Or either one. Yeah. But yeah, I really like the aesthetic of this because it is the time period it's set in. And I also like, you know, even though I said like it's a little confusing with the Japanese political stuff, it is definitely like, it doesn't hold your hand. And I appreciate that. I kind of like it when things don't hold your hand and you just kind of have to figure out what's going on by like the artwork or the context of the conversations. Like, you know, to know who's evil or whatnot. You might know they're evil if you speak Japanese and can read the kanji or whatever on the school name or whatever. But like, if you don't, you're just kind of like, okay, that's that guy, you know. And until they start talking, you're like, oh, this is a bad person, you know. So you just kind of have to pick up on those things as you're reading it. But right away, we get like a fight within the very beginning of this book that lets you know that this is a serious manga. And I will say these books were always wrapped in plastic at the comic book store when we stocked them at Austin Books. And I never knew why. I was like, this is a manga, like an old manga. Now, speaking of that, are you aware of what year this was written, John?
No, not initially. I read some of the blurb, but I don't recall.
Yeah. What would you guess? What would you guess this year this was written?
I mean, I would think like the initial manga, like, you know, pre-translation of it and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine like basic story and like pictures of this, not even like super detailed. I could probably picture this like.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
What do you mean super detailed?
I'm just saying like. Oh, okay. Well,
this presentation is the original manga. They just. No, I'm talking about like when the manga came out.
When this specifically. Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, I don't know. 1950.
No, not that old.
Okay.
1970. So
okay.
I mean, that's pretty old for a manga, you know? Like, I think, you know, you have like Astro Boy or something that might predate this, but if you compare Astro Boy and this is like, there is nudity, there is extreme violence and gore. There is like, this does not pull any punches. And as I was reading this, I was kind of taken aback by how bloody and graphic this is in lots of ways, but also, you know, nudity and stuff too. I was like, wow, like they just in the 70s you could do this, because you could not do this in comics in the 70s at all in America. Like if you put this out in America, it would be brought up on obscenity charges possibly. Like you couldn't send this in the mail in America. in the 70s. So that's kind of weird to think about, I think. Well, maybe not. I'm trying to think. When did they had obscenity laws, but some of them weren't around or weren't enforced at that time. But this is pretty early, you know, right after the 60s, 1970 exactly. So if this was coming out in America, people would be like, what the fuck? This is pornography. There's nudity. So, but right away, in the beginning of this, we see, you know, just how badass our main guy, his name's Ito, right?
Ogami Ito, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna call him by Ito. Just we're gonna keep it one word names because I don't remember all the names of everybody. So, but yeah, Ito is running around. He gets approached by some men who try to attack him. They surround him on the road, and they think he's just a guy walking with a baby because that's like the mask he puts on, right? Like everywhere he goes, people just are like unassuming. They think, oh, who's this guy? We'll rob him. He's got a kid. But what they don't know is that he is like this badass assassin. They try to rob him. He fucking murders them, no problem. And he even like gets blinded by a hawk during this fight because they have. Oh, that was another thing. I love that. This is something that I didn't know was in these older manga, but in like Fist of North Star, every time they do a fighting move, they always have a name for it.
Oh yeah.
So like when the hawk flies up and attacks, they're like, that is the flying diving hawk attack or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. Like this is a specific martial arts move that they're talking about, which I enjoy. And they did that almost every time anyone did anything cool as an attack in this manga. So yeah, and another thing we see is like during this killing, the baby is pretty down for the murdering. Like he's into it. Whenever we see him and we see killing happening, he's smiling usually or involved directly in the murdering of people because he's like a decoy and stuff. So and just like this, where the people see the kid, one of the great things about this first issue is he gets captured by a couple men, and you think, oh no, he's gonna get killed, or what's gonna happen to his baby? And it's all he got captured because he wanted to get captured. That's the that's the, like, I let you capture me so that I could get into your, you know, secret castle, and then I am here with all of the people I need to kill, and then he kills them. So and like the kid is in on it because he's like, oh my, you got to let go of my ropes, you got to untie me because my child needs to take a piss, I got to let him piss. And then the kid's like, I gotta go pee. And then it's like,
and it starts crying.
Yeah, it starts crying.
Like, oh my god, stop with him crying. Like, take him already. Okay.
Yeah. And then he's like, all right, Junior, jump on my back, hold tight, I gotta go kill these guys. He just murders like everybody in this place. So it's like, that's pretty much, we're not going to go through like every issue of this or every chapter of the manga, because there's pretty much like the same scenario happens. He's walking, he gets hired by someone, possibly either off page or we see that happen, but he's usually walking, he goes somewhere, they don't realize who he is, he starts killing people, they realize who he is, end of chapter, next chapter, you know. So yeah, and that's how it is for a while. There is an overarching plot though that starts to develop by like issue or chapter 5, where like you see, okay, there's these different clans and they are all trying to fight for different control of different regions and stuff. So that's kind of like the overarching plot of this, at least this first volume. I did read a little plot synopsis of what the rest of the plot is, and it's very much like he's getting revenge because obviously there's no mother, right? So the mother was killed by a certain clan, and he has left his governor or whatever to where he was like an executioner, a special executioner, the high executioner, I guess, for this governor, or they call them shogunates. So he left the governor or the shogunate to go get revenge for the people that killed his wife, kind of thing. So And it's just him getting closer and closer to that goal through all 28 volumes of manga, I guess. But yeah, like, and then that's pretty much how they progress. They get more and more crazy, I would say, as we go along. I don't know if you had any specific stories that were your favorites, but I loved this beginning of the second issue where we start off with the child or his son looking like he's drowning in a lake. And just so happens that this guy who is a pretty badass warrior looking dude who has guns on him, he's like a samurai with guns. He sees the baby and he's like, oh my God, I have to save this child. So he takes off all his, his clothing, including his 2 guns. He dives in after the child and then is immediately stabbed because Ito is waiting for him in the shallows or whatever.
Yeah, waiting in the shallow depths. He's like,
Yes. And then the baby is like, yay, I had fun being a decoy, like pretending to drown and murdering this person. So it's pretty awesome that the child is just included in all of this murder, and it doesn't seem like it's a problem. And even so much as to, like, at the very end in the last issue of this, or the last chapter of this book, he makes the baby choose between like being a kid, like he's like, choose a ball or the sword, and like the kid has to think about it for a second, and then he's like, sword, and like he walks over to the sword, and then Ito's like, good choice, like you've chosen the way of the warrior, you will defend like your mother's honor or whatever, and like you will continue after me. And yeah, I thought that was like super fucked up, but also like super funny. I don't know, just like, it's so weird. You would never get a comic like this with these sensibilities in America, especially at this time, because the cultures are so different, right? Like it's a cultural difference of like honor and all that kind of stuff that is showing through these scenes or these chapters. So I gotta ask you, John, were you taken aback by the sex in this book?
The full-on sex? Yes, I was. I didn't. I knew. Yeah, I could tell it was going to get a little sexy as far as like something was going to happen, and well, I knew it was going to have some nudity, I should say, because there's some sex that was not in a good thing. But
right, I mean, yeah, there's rape in this as well.
Yeah. By bad people, not from our.
Yeah, not our hero.
But yeah, like when it starts and I'm like, okay, yeah, there's some nudity, because I'm like, okay, it's a manga, I'm gonna get some boobs sometimes, it happens,
right?
But then like turning the page and then being like, oh, that's like thrusting, and then grabbing, and then the one panel in particular, he like biting her nipple, and I was like, oh my goodness,
yeah, this is some intense. Yeah, I was like, wow, he's really going at it in this. That's interesting.
I will say the detail in art from the actual awesome fights, like the line work on the fights to show like him like going crazy, like obviously going crazy with the blade and killing like multiple people. He kills people with different type of weapons all throughout, some like short blades, some like staff. I don't know the name of them all.
Right.
But all very unique, but all like absolutely gorgeous artwork.
Yeah.
Down to even the like, the nudity and sex is like super detailed, and it's like, oh my goodness, like even that's like, okay, wow, like he went all in on it, on the art for every panel of this.
John was very impressed with the way he rendered breasts. All right.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, as we all know, that's the number one thing I talk about, Matt.
Yep. Call him John Titty Johnson. That's all he cares about.
For different reasons.
But yeah, so I thought that was shocking, like when I first read it, because also I didn't know this is from the 70s, but I knew it was pretty old. So I was just shocked, like, oh wow, this has like actual graphic sex in it. And then another thing that I thought was amazing, like I said, the baby gets to do a lot of interesting things. And in the second issue, not only does he pretend to drown and gets a man killed, later on in the issue, he is found with the guy who took his guns off. They take his gun and they put it in the baby's hands and then put him off in the distance. And as the target of the assassination is walking, they see the baby and they're like, oh my God, that baby's got the guy's guns that we've been looking for. Like, how did he get that gun? And I was just like, they just gave a baby a gun, like, and he's just waving it around and like pointing it at shit. I don't know if it's loaded or not. Probably is. If we're just gonna, give a baby the gun, sure, why not? Maybe the baby knows how to shoot and can defend himself. I don't know, but I just thought it was funny, just the imagery that you would never see in a comic from the 70s from like Marvel or DC of a baby holding a gun is just
holding a handgun. Yeah,
it's just amazing. So needless to say, like every one of these definitely has like a twist, where like it's kind of like a crime mystery a little bit. Each one of these has like a setup that you're kind of you as the reader don't quite know exactly who the bad guy is, who the good guy is, and they reveal those things throughout as like slowly as it progresses through each chapter. And like I said, each chapter is a self-contained story, so you get a full story in each chapter where there's a setup where he gets hired or he comes into town, and then he runs into the bad guys, and either he fools them and gets them to do something he wants to do before he kills them, or he just straight up murders them all immediately. So
yeah, I think each one of these chapters was fairly fulfilling on their own. Like I could have read like, just kind of, you told me the basis of this and like given me any one of those, I'd be like, oh, that's a cool story. Like I would like to know more of that. We read 9 in total, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 9.
Yeah, I think there was one that didn't have as much, very little killing compared to all the rest. So
yes, and I will say, if you are an animal lover, this book is pretty graphic towards animals. I mean, like when usually like the bad guys are like, oh, we can't beat him on foot, we will trap him by battling him on horses, and that doesn't work either, because he just chops the horse's legs off as they run at him and their heads off and whatnot. So it's pretty crazy. One thing I liked is they have like there's a lot of that like honor code, right? Even between bad people. So like in the honor codes, bad people will still like fulfill those obligations, right? So he'll be like, we need to have our, like, I don't want to kill you right now, I don't want to fight all 9 of you, why don't we challenge each other to do an actual duel that's proper, and you guys sign this on the paper, and that means that no one can attack me after I kill this guy in the duel, or vice versa, because I'm in hostile territory. So like it's like, yeah, but it's just a piece of paper, like like technically they could just kill you. Who gives a shit? But like the whole point is like, oh, it would dishonor our master who made the debt, or who made the contract with Ito. So if Ito kills him, we can't dishonor our master by killing him back.
How dare you, Matt? Have you no honor?
Well, I just mean like they're bad guys, right? So like, I think it was like, it's a cool look at the culture of Japan at that time period, where it's so honor based that even the bad guys like hold up these contracts that, it's kind of like, in old battles in like the Revolutionary War and stuff, where it's like, we must line up and shoot at each other, and to have, people in the woods shooting at different times is it's improper, and like, not proper warring, so like, you are shameful. And it's just like, yeah, but I won the war because I can shoot you whenever I want, I'm not standing in front of you in a line in the middle of a field, so.
No, well, yeah, what are you talking about? Everybody lines up on either side, and it's like Red Rover with bullets.
Yeah, just back and forth, just shoot one and then the other, and then see who's standing at the end.
Yeah, the guns weren't accurate, so if you kill some of them, cool. If not, get to reload and hope you don't die in the meantime.
Yes, exactly. And so I mean, obviously we had a similar honor code, but it seems like this is even more, because like, even in the Revolutionary War, the Americans were doing like guerrilla tactics, right? Like they were in the woods and, ambushing British soldiers and stuff. So like, obviously there is an honor code, but we'll break it if it'll win the war. But it seemed like these guys would not break it unless they could find another rule that could like get around it. So like, okay, we can't break this contract, but we're going to make our own contract with them and challenge them to a second duel that then overrides the first, and then we have to sign that contract. So it's like a bureaucracy you have to do to make sure that your honor is kept and your dead master's honor is also kept.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was very interesting. It's like a very it's a very different and interesting culture, and I like the way that they would do that. Like that they're so honorable that they'll hold up like dead people's contracts. So yeah, I'm trying to think. Was there any other ones that stood out to you specifically?
There was one that was kind of interesting too. Is in the fourth one when there's a couple that comes up to hire the baby, the
Yes.
son, and I was like, okay, where's this gonna go? Where's this gonna go? And he's like, yeah, okay, well, I don't need payment, but my baby's hungry. And then this 3-year-old, they're like, hey, you're a woman. I can tell, even though you try to hide it.
No, they were hiring the baby to suckle or to like, that was like the reason they were hiring the baby.
I know, but I mean, like, I think, like, I guess maybe he realized that without her saying, because he was like, I don't need a payment because you're just gonna do that. And she's like, oh, that's right. That's kind of why we wanted to do it.
Yes. Yeah, because she needed to breastfeed, and I guess she was full of milk and sore because no one was feeding off of her. So they're like, can we hire your baby to suck out the milk or whatever? And he's like, well, you don't need to pay me. The baby will be fed, and that's enough payment. So yeah, shit like that. It's like an interesting thing that would never be in an American comic, especially in the 70s.
No,
so,
exactly. That's why I was like, that's wild. I never imagined seeing something like that in a comic.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I loved about this comic is the double page spreads were just like magnificently drawn. Like the really cool layouts that look like, I can only imagine what they look like in the original art, like just gigantic landscapes. Usually it was like during, like he's trying to show like two opposing sides gathering for battle, and like it just looks gigantic, and the scenery, like the actual environments look very, very cool.
Oh yeah, there were some panels that were, like you said, they're sweeping across like 4 or 5 panels, but then all those panels make up that one image, and very, like, you could see how, like, where Tarantino took things from that, like Kill Bill with him in the middle and all the bodies like strewn around him, or anytime I can pull a Star Wars reference, I will.
Right.
The Mandalorian right now is hot, and
Mandalorian,
he's so hot right now. And no, it's an amazing show. But yeah, I totally see like some of those references. In particular, the one you mentioned, because Grogu has a moment where he has to choose between two things, and it's very similar, and I thought that was really cool.
So they stole it.
I was like, they are
heavily borrowed,
an ode and a reference to it,
and
they specifically said that. Yeah, it is in homage.
Sure. All right.
I mean, that's what George Lucas based a lot of Star Wars on. That all of Star Wars is based on a lot of
thieves
samurai
is
lore.
what they are, thieves. So yeah, a lot of stuff, and pretty much anytime you have an adult and a kid on a journey together, like, even you could even say like The Road, the movie The Road, or the book The Road, that is a man and a son, same thing. You're gonna have the same like dynamic between two characters if it's an adult and the kid, or a kid.
Like Kick-Ass.
Yeah, Kick-Ass, similar with the dad and Hit Girl.
Yeah,
right. Big Daddy and Hit Girl. Yeah,
Hit Girl. Yeah.
So yeah, like there's a lot of this in media, but I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe this was the first time that trope was used, at least like this.
I feel like because I've heard this manga referenced dozens and dozens of times, and like reference to all the ones we mentioned and many others. I've heard so many people talk about this being an influence. So I mean, yeah, unless they had an influence, that, which they could have, but I've not heard of specifically.
Well, I'm sure that this creative team had an influence, but like we might not know it because it's probably some other manga artists or other traditional Japanese stuff or something, but
or like an actual like old Japanese lore story that we don't know.
Right. Yeah, that could be very well. They even said at the very end there was like a little what's it called? Exposition dump, kind of at the like in the very end of this book, like when there's a big landscape and it's like him battling like this master guy, and then there was like a big info dump kind of right in the middle that you said like, this is where I got this concept. This is like, you know, it is, I think, based loosely on something that actually happened in history. That was like kind of like, I guess, like our folklore stuff, you know, that we have similar, but
Yeah.
but like, yeah, it's not quite folklore if you actually base it on someone real. But yeah, I think that's kind of cool that he's like, this is my interpretation of kind of how those events happened. Like, obviously, this isn't perfectly, or this isn't actually what happened, but it's what I think could have happened from that story that I heard. Yeah. So, what did you think about the use of urine, specifically the kids' urine, as a mode of either starting a battle or distracting bad guys for the Ronin or for the for Ito?
I mean, it's pretty great for the story. I mean, I like the next one in particular. Yeah, he's like, there's like a group of guys, and he's like peeing off the side of a cliff on one, and they're like, oh, how dare you, you know, soil my, you know, robes and whatnot, and they're like, oh yeah, whose child is this? And he's like, oh, it's mine. And yeah, I wanted to, I needed this to happen. So thanks for coming. Thanks for coming up here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, it seemed like some of this stuff was, at first you thought it was like happenstance, like, oh, the kid was just pissing off of the ledge. It so happened these guys fell or were underneath it when he was peeing. But actually Ito orchestrates it so that these are actually the people he was supposed to kill, so that they get into this situation and don't realize that he is actually an assassin that's coming after them, that has planned this whole thing. And but yeah, he uses his child a lot, specifically his child, to pee on them or to do other things during battle and whatnot, in order to get ahead, I guess, on some of these people that he's trying to kill or has been hired to kill. So yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that, because that's such a, they do that in Dragon Ball too. Like, that's something that comes up fairly often, is like a little kid that has to go pee, and I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. Dragon Ball, and then like early Dragon Ball Z with Gohan, they definitely was
Right.
referenced a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, they would do that all the time. So like, I guess it's just kind of like, yeah, they realize kids got to pee all the time, so might as well use it to their advantage. So yeah, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
There is one comic that starts off with, or one chapter in this that starts off with, I guess Ito had at one town given his child to some random man and was like, drop him off here. And then that's it, like a note that said like, drop him off at this address a couple towns later, and you better not do anything to him. And then like, he does it. I was just like, wow, you really trust random people? I guess you can back then, right? Like, it's kind of like latchkey kids, you know, in the 70s. you give a 7-year-old a key, and they could walk to school, walk back home, open the door, not burn the house down, feed themselves just in time for the parents to get home, and it was fine. No one ever died that we know of from that.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, the honor code, you know, everybody has that a bit. So yeah, the merchant that's selling his stuff will kind of get down there. So if you want to be like, okay, I'm going to hand off my kid to you, you take him. You're going to that town. Just take him with you.
Yes.
Oh, okay, sure, sounds good.
Yeah, no problem. You know, why would I hurt this kid? You know, it's an adorable child. So yeah, like he'll do that. Also, just he uses the kid a lot to set up these traps, I'll say, for certain people. And it's also like, because people have heard of this assassin that travels around with a child, and they're the ones who gave him the name. Like the I guess the people who hear of this man and child assassin team, they're the ones who gave him the name Lone Wolf and Cub. So they say that every now and then in this, like, oh, are you the Lone Wolf and Cub? Or they say, oh, we knew you were the Lone Wolf and Cub because you had that child. So he has to sometimes give the child away in order to not look like Lone Wolf and Child. And then the child comes back later when he needs him to help him fight or whatever. So yeah. You had mentioned when we were talking before this, one of the more interesting plots and storylines in this book was the eight, what are they, the eight gates of assassins or something they're called.
Yeah, so like, and it was funny because so I felt like it was going to be much more intense as far as like, so there's these eight, like there's from the part of the comic, it's or this issue, it seems like they're naked but like training, so it's like obviously they're like strong, supposed to be beautiful, powerful women, they're what did they, I forget what they call
They call them the eight
that specific
gates.
group.
That's what they call them.
Sure, they eat gates, but I was trying to remember what they called them, the beat sushi kimi, I think is
Oh yeah,
the title for them. I was trying to remember the title.
Yeah, which means like warrior women, basically, is what that means.
So like, and like, so they come at him in stages, but I get that our hero is supposed to be, like he's a badass assassin or not, but like it goes through all eight of them in the time that they come to attack him with no problem whatsoever. Like none of them are challenge for him.
There was one problem where he was almost going to get stabbed in the back, but the baby had a gold coin that fell in his little papoose that the dad wears for the baby, and the baby saves the dad by throwing the coin at one of the ladies that's coming from behind him, and then he has time to turn around and kill her.
Yes.
So once again, the kid comes in clutch.
Yeah, kid comes in clutch at the end, but still, like in general, like none of them were actually a fight for him. And then there's a man at the end that who is like, I guess like he's the real
he said like, I knew you would cut through these eight women assassins, so I threw them at you in order to make you think, oh, I killed all eight, that's all, I'm done now, I don't have to kill anymore. But guess what, there's a ninth motherfucker, and that's me. So it was supposed to like make him drop his guard because he's killed all eight of them, and they're known as the eight gates and all that. So he hired them for a very specific reason. So.
Yeah, but then of course that guy also is like he gets he gets the one up on him on the like a rickety bridge, and so he falls to it, and he's like through, but holds on, and then he's like, "Ha!" And he like Matt said, he kind of goes through that like, I have bested you in the story of, yeah, you thought there were eight, but I am the ninth. And then he's like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, I knew this was coming too," and then pulls out another weapon of his and stabs him.
This is one of the few stories where I was like, where did that? I looked back in the art and I did not see that weapon anywhere, but it's like his staff that has a hidden knife in it that comes out at the end when he wants it to. There's no button or anything that I see him push or anything, but we'll let that slide. But yeah, I looked back at the art. Wrist. Yeah, exactly. It's like a switchblade or something. But exactly. I looked back in the art and I did not see that anywhere, but magically it appears when he needs. So I will say there's a little bit of that in this during the battles and stuff, like what needs to happen. Yeah, of course. But what needs to happen for him to live definitely happens. It's very convenient sometimes, but it looks cool on the page at least. So we'll let it slide, for the most part. My favorite issue of this actually is the next one, and this one is called, let's see, it's the 8th issue or the 8th chapter, and it's called "Wings to the Bird, Fangs to the Beast." And this is the dad and son go to and this is like, they're not even contracted, right? Like this one is just them going to a town that has a hot springs, and it turns out there's some bandits. Yeah, they're just going to go to a bathhouse, and it turns out there's just bandits that have, I guess, taken the town hostage, and specifically they're everybody in the bathhouse is held hostage. So when Ito and his son go in, they get held hostage too, and the men plan on killing everybody in the bathhouse to make sure that everybody in the town sees how violent they are and is scared to talk and say these men are here when they leave, or these men went this way when they leave. So I love this one because of the cast of characters. Specifically, there's like a prostitute in this cast of characters. I will say this is the one with the most graphic stuff because this one does have rape in it from the bad guys' side. But I think it's just to illustrate how bad these guys are, so that when he murders all of them, it's like no problem. We don't care. But
Yeah, since he wasn't like contracted for them. I will say, you said cast characters, that made me think this one totally has a moment that like is such a trope in a lot of movies, where it's like the would-be hero enters the room and then you meet the cast of characters. Like there's like the prostitute, the
Yes.
monk, the quiet merchant, the
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
exactly what this was. It's perfect.
Yes. And of course, like the brash asshole who thinks he's the badass, but he's not. And so yeah, the in the bathhouse when Ito gets there, everybody knows he is a samurai, whatever, by the garb he wears. And so even though he is like a Ronin, he still has that honor code to uphold. And this was another cultural thing that I liked a lot in this. But basically, the bad guys are like, I guess the woman that they raped at the beginning was only raped by one of the men, and the other men were like, "Oh man, you killed her before we got to rape her." So they are, I guess, still horny or whatever. So they say they wanted to have sex with a prostitute in this bathhouse, but instead they'll just watch. They think it would be funny to dishonor the samurai by making him have sex with the prostitute. And at first I was like, I do not understand what the conflict of interest is here. Like they're like, you have to have sex with her, and he doesn't say anything, and they're like, and the woman is like, how? No, you cannot. You will not make me have sex with him. And it's like, wait, what? Like, I don't understand the reluctance or like the shock that she has at this suggestion, because it is like either we're going to kill you and rape you, or you have sex with this samurai. And apparently it's because prostitutes in this culture back then were thought of as less than or unclean or whatever. And so for a samurai to have sex with a prostitute was very shameful. And
Yeah, they're supposed to be a noble warrior. So
yeah. So even though I'm sure that was very commonplace at the time, people would do it on the down low, I guess. But to have it out in the open, these men are like, it'll be hilarious to watch him in front of everybody shame himself by having sex with this woman, this prostitute. And so she is like, no, kill me now. I don't want to have any part of this and you shaming him. But he stands up like a noble warrior.
And the noble man that he is.
And he disrobes and is like, I will save your life. He doesn't say that. He just is quietly disrobes and then lays down with her. And then there's a very sensual sex scene where we see her definitely getting pleasure from him. And all the men are very embarrassed because she literally definitely comes in front of everybody. And so does he. And everybody's kind of whoa.
Yeah, they make it a point to be like, okay, this was gonna be like awkward or like dishonorable and shameful for him, and it turned out to be awkward because it went from
such a good lover.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it was gonna be weird for them, but then it actually turned out to be pleasurable, enjoyable for both of them, and especially her being a prostitute. They were like, oh crap, like that was a good thing for her too. Oh my goodness, like and like I love all their faces. They have that little like the little sweat bead on the top corner of their head with like, I can't believe it. Like now I'm awkward in this room. Why are we with him while he's having like he's making love over there?
Passionate love.
Yeah.
That, and also there's people like coughing, like trying to look away and whatnot. So I just thought that was awesome.
Conan.
Like it was very Conan, but I thought it was funny, like because of the different cultural implications. At first it was off, or it threw me off, but I actually liked that. So like it was a twist on something that I think we've seen this before, probably not quite exactly like this, but a similar thing where it's like, oh, I'm gonna help you, and then the prostitute is like, oh, I'll sleep with you because you're such a good guy or whatever. But this is like a twist on that, or different version of that, where she's like, I will not dishonor the samurai, and he's like, no, I am such a good person that I will not let you die. I must sleep with you. And so, but it's weird because it makes him like it makes it feel like he gets his cake and he eats it too. Like
Yeah.
like he gets to be the badass person who saves the woman, and he also gets to have sex with the woman at the same time. So yeah, it was just like an interesting story, which of course ends with him murdering everybody and the woman being very into him, and like happy about that. But I thought maybe they were gonna like be a thing for the rest of the book, but they do not end up being together like officially or anything.
He is a lone wolf, sir.
Yeah,
He must travel alone with
that's
his
true.
hunt.
With his
I,
cub.
I do like. I do have to say that I do appreciate that the son is not like at least in this first volume he was not like a cock block there or anything. They're like every time like there is a sexual tension of stuff, the kid's like, okay, I'm like we're gonna put them a kid over here away from that.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna turn around and not do anything.
yeah.
And not watch this and whatnot. Yeah, so like I mean, pretty much there's 9 volumes of this. The last one is him kind of the culmination of this at least first overarching story arc where he runs into the head of the rival gang, or the head, it might even be of his gang. I think he has gone rogue, and they are like, what, you have dishonored your shogunate and now we must fight you because you have dishonored him. But they don't realize that, or maybe they are the people, I don't know, that carried out the order to kill his wife. So but we haven't got that far yet, so we don't know in this volume that his wife was killed and what are the circumstances behind that. I just read ahead because I wanted to know why there was this tension in the first place and how he became a Ronin. But yeah, and this is also the one where the kid decides to choose the sword over the ball at the age of 3. This is a kid that gets shit done. This is the kind of kid I like. All right, he's got your back, even though he's 3.
Literally, he will distract the bad guy and then literally get on your back, climb on your back, and he's got your 6.
Yes,
he
exactly.
holds on tight.
In this, he does have his 6. He, like, at the very end of this, he defeats all like the main bad guys, and then there's the one last one. There's like the boss or whatever, and the boss runs at him, and it's like, oh, he is going to lose because this boss is better than him at sword fighting or whatever. And because he has the kid on his back, the kid is wearing like one of those mirrors that like surgeons wear or whatever on their fucking heads for light.
Yeah.
And he blinds the old boss dude, and that makes it so he kills the boss without any other issue. So like because of the kid, that's why he's able to kill the boss. So I thought that was pretty badass actually. But that was actually like the culmination of or the example or the embodiment of the child choosing the sword over the ball. So that is the end of this this volume, which is volume 1 of Lone Wolf and Cub. I thought it was pretty badass, but John, what would you give it? What did you think?
Oh yeah, I am right there with you. Like I said, I went into this probably a little more excited than you initially, just because of, like I said, the connotation that I know with this, with things I already love. Like I said, especially like the Mandalorian being
Right.
like it's like it's space spaghetti western / samurai mixed in with this. It's pretty much beat for beat on a lot of that. And so like I was very much like ready to see that, and like it did not disappoint. As a matter of fact, it like exceeded my expectations with like the art with it, and then like left me like in like jaw dropped in awe and like shocked of some of the things that I saw in this.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was fantastic. I really, like I said, I can't talk enough about the art. All black and white. I don't know if we mentioned that specifically.
Yeah, well, most manga is black
like most
and white.
manga is. But yeah, I guess that kind of goes without saying then, my bad. But in particular, the line work on this to get certain things across, like I said, from his amazing, most of it, like I would say, that's one thing too with his sword work, that I would say he dispatches most of his enemies with like a quick like just real like
He always slashes them he always slashes them in the stomach or down the middle of the face.
Yeah. So yeah, they're usually like pretty quick kills. If it's like a large group, like I said, there's one or two panels where I said very like Kill Bill or uh that large swath of like just seeing bodies strewn about or all around him. But yeah, like I just thought it was really cool. Every time it like did like a zoom in on like just his face or his eyes and like showing that like intense look on him. I love the way it was drawn. And then like you said, even the cub like specifically having those expressions of like oh, I'm excited that this death is happening, or like oh, I'm involved in this killing, or I'm involved in
Yes.
this plot. So
There are
I
many
liked all
scenes
of
where like Ito is chopping off people's arms and legs and shit and murdering people. And in the background, he makes sure to draw the baby looking in joy at his dad murdering people, which I thought was
several
hilarious.
times, or like I don't know. There's several times he's got like his hands together, like he's going to be clapping or
Yeah.
something
Yay.
for what's going on. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I definitely want to read more of this one. This one is like you said, I don't know as far as collecting it, but I definitely is on my list to dive further into.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't remember what I gave all of the other manga that we've read, but this is definitely one of my favorites that we've read so far.
Right.
Like this is the Junji Ito stuff I really enjoyed. I like the horror elements, and then this is cool storytelling. This is one I really enjoyed. So I'm gonna give this one. I'm gonna give it a 9. Honestly,
Oh,
it
nice.
was really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 9 too. I think I went in with not low expectations because I know what it is, but I went in with the idea that I said at the beginning, where it's like, okay, this is a prototype of a lot of things that we've seen already in stories and stuff. So, kind of like I said, when you listen to older music, it can take the shine off of it because you've already seen that trope or those storylines and stuff way too many times, copied a bunch, um just over the last 40 or 50 years. So I was like, okay, that might make it less enjoyable because of that. But in fact, I don't know. I thought a lot of the elements in this were actually pretty fresh because they did twists on it, and then also because of the whole, it's a different culture. I really liked that about it because it made everything feel new, or at least interesting and different from what we get here in the States, where they might have these same concepts, but they're from a Western or an American point of view. And so they don't have that cultural aspect to it. And that made this feel really original and interesting to me. So, um, yeah, I'm a 9 is like, I'm actually like gonna go buy these now. Like I'm gonna buy the omnibuses that are out right now because I want to read the whole story. And this was like, by the end of this, I was like, I am fucking into this story. Like I love this kid. I love this main story. I kind of might need to brush up because there was a glossary in the very back for all the Japanese terms and stuff. Because at the beginning of this book, we didn't say, but there was like a foreword that was like, hey guys, we're not going to hold your hand on these Japanese words because there's not really a direct translation in English. So you're just going to have to read those Japanese words, and through context of the other words that you're reading in English, figure out what they mean. So, and then at the very back, there is a glossary of a lot of those terms. So you get the definitions, but in the text, in the actual book, there's no, definition, or you just have to read it.
Or cliff notes, yeah.
Yeah, there's no cliff notes that you can just reference really quick. So I personally didn't go, read the glossary every time I didn't, know a term, but I tried as my best just to follow along the main story and through the context of what was happening, gather what those words meant. But I like that too, because it's kind of like, it makes you work for it. And when you work for a book or you work through a story, it makes it mean more to you, because you're like, oh, I get it. It's kind of like DC. When you read DC, you're like, oh, I finally understand why Hal Jordan was Spectre or whatever, because in this, all the continuity now, and it makes you feel special. It's like the same thing with that. Like, oh, I know all this, like this context of all these terms, and I get it now. So like, it means more to me as a reader, kind of thing, because I feel special. So, and I put the work in it, kind of thing. So, yeah, I enjoyed that about it a lot. So I'm definitely going to continue reading this. I think, unless did you have anything else on this one?
No, I don't think so. I think I feel solid in our coverage of
Cool.
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Nice. Well, then we should mention that next week we're going to have our exclusive Patreon episode. And so if you would like to be part of that, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And the cool thing about this one is we're starting our first multi-part series in that we're going to do Watchmen, but we're breaking Watchmen up into 3 episodes. So over the next 3 months, the exclusive episode will be the Watchmen parts 1, 2, and 3. And we're doing 4 issues an episode just to try to really cover it, really go in depth and give it its due for the amazing work of art it is. And I will say that John here has never read Watchmen. He tells me he's read pieces and shit, but what the fuck does that mean? I've read a panel or something and I understand no, you don't. So I got mad at him because he's like, I get I get it. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't understand what you're talking about. So we're going to read The Watchmen. He's seen the movie though. So he knows the story, right? You've seen the movie, correct?
Yeah, I have seen the movie, and I didn't say I understood the whole thing. I said that I've read parts of it, and then I know I've other parts that I've gone back that were different from the movie because I was curious, and then because I watched the show too that was on HBO.
That makes no sense to me. I don't know how you watched that show and understood anything without reading the book. Even if you saw the movie, half that shit isn't in the HBO show, so or in the book. So yeah, makes no sense, but whatever, John. We're going to read the actual book, the text by Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore, one of the best comics of all time. Some people say. I would say that. I enjoy it, but yeah, so this is the first time for John, which is kind of
for the
fun.
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books podcast. We're finally going to read what most considered to be one of the greatest comics of all time. Yes. And I am excited to fully sit down and explore it. And that's why when we talked about it, and like I said, we're doing it for our patrons specifically, since y'all really, you guys are obviously really enjoying the breakdown of comics. So we're going to give you the in-depth version of this as I dive into it fully for the first time, and Matt is there to not hold my hand, but be like, how did you harass me the whole time? So, but I'm really excited.
How the fuck did you not have to read? Oh, and also we're going to read everything. So we're not just reading the issues, but we're reading the inner indicia, the pirate story. We're going to read that, which is interwoven, but a lot of people skip that shit. And then the same with, there are book excerpts that characters from Watchmen or characters in Watchmen wrote books in that continuity or in the series. And after a chapter or after an issue, at the very back of it, there will be little excerpts from that book. So we're going to read those too. We're going to read everything, and we're going to talk about all of them as they come about through the 4 issues that we're reading each time. So
okay.
Oh no, my God, we got to read a book.
We have to read it, or it's a real book, not just a picture book.
Yeah. So we're gonna do that. So if you once again, I should say we want to thank our patrons. So thank you to Otaku Mike, Hoku, Christian, and Matthew for supporting us. We very much appreciate it, and we hope you guys enjoy it. Be sure if we just kind of pick out these topics off the top of our head. So if you have a topic you want us to do for the exclusives, be sure to shoot us a message on Patreon or on our email and let us know. That email is planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, @gmail.com. And if you do that, we'll definitely take those into account when we're picking our exclusive episode topics. So or books. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. We don't know what we're reading for the first book next month. We'll let you guys know probably in a post the week before we do that for the first week of April. So
yeah, but we do have a special one we're doing for Easter coming up. That's right around the corner. So.
Yes, when is Easter, John? Do you know? I don't even know when that is.
I know it. I know that we're getting pretty close. What is Easter? Let me double check. Easter 2023. Oh, I guess we do know what we're doing because Easter is Sunday, April 9th.
Oh, April 9th. Okay. Well, that's April 2nd is the first Sunday of that of April.
Yeah. I know. So are we going to do it for? Are we just going to do a bonus episode?
I guess we're gonna do it for the first. I guess, like you said, we do know what we're gonna do on April 2nd in preparation for Easter, which is we're going to read the Complete American Jesus series by Mark Miller and Peter Gross, which is a series I just read. I did a review of it on my on the YouTube channel that we have because it was so amazing, and I figured, what better thing to read for Easter than a series about the Antichrist and the newborn Messiah? So why not?
It's topical, so
yeah, exactly. So yeah. Oh, what were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say I know that we kind of talked about it beforehand, and then Matt like kind of went full in on it and was like, "Oh no, it like I read it all because I couldn't put it down. It's gonna be great." So I'm really excited to get into it, and I think it's gonna be a fun holiday treat for everyone.
Yeah, and it's I think it's only 9 issues long, but the series took 20 years to write fully and complete. So it was just over time. It was like a labor of love that they would do every now and then. So pretty awesome. So definitely look forward to that. And once again, if you would like to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And with that, I think we'll see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.